এটা ডিফারেন্ট। তুমি সবাইকে কোনটা দিচ্ছ? তবে এটা রেখে থাকবে না। Good morning, dear devotees and friends. So, let us begin the celebration of the birthday of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. The Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, as you all know, is a unique personality. So, even in the realm of the religion, in the history of the spirituality, many they mention that he is really unique, because not only his realization, his way of teaching, his way of talking, his way of living, his way of having the experience before everyone so frequently. That's called Nirvikalpa Samadhi. It was within, in his hand. Any time he could do that. And he could read the minds of the people. He could guide the people in their own way. Different type of people, different type of aptitudes, the attitudes, the thoughts. So he could guide them also. So there are so many ways Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, as we have noticed, even the Roma Rolla, the Max Muller, and all these savants, all these scholars, after studying the life of Sri Ramakrishna, that Max Muller is mentioning, he is a unique, a real Mahatma. That is the word he used, Max Muller. So this is Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. We consider him the God himself, the God who takes the human form to guide us and to make us follow the path of righteousness. And that is the way the human being can reach to the ultimate goal, and that is the God realization. So we will discuss slowly. So now let us begin with the Pranam Mantra. It's in the, I think in the first page, but stapled in the second half. That is, please repeat after me. Niranjanam Nityam Anantarupam Bhaktanukampa Drita Vigraham Vai Ishavataram Parameshamidyam Tam Ramakrishnam Shirasa Namamaha. Niranjanam, the one who is not having any desire, so free from all malices. So that is called Niranjanam in Sanskrit. Nityam, he is eternal. That God, one who can be eternal, the God, the Supreme. Ananta Rupam, at the same time, the one who is all-pervading, who is eternal, has taken different forms. This is the conception, this is the realization of the Hinduism. The Hinduism always say that this is the God has become this universe. Now the universe should go back to God. And in this universe we find the best creature is the human being. Why? Because the human being can think, human being can concentrate, human being can remember. So this is the way all these wonderful qualities that the God is having has been given to the human being. And then the challenge was given to the human being, and that is this world. The world is constantly attracting all our senses. Our eyes are going out without our control. We don't like to think, but the mind will go on thinking so many things, as if this is not our own mind, though we say it is our mind. But the mind is thinking in its own way. And organs are also working in their own way. We cannot control them. What is the reason? That is the mystical power of God. The Vedantin, they call it Maya, and the others call it Prakriti. So that God's power is giving us the challenges. He has given us all the teaching through the scriptures. He has sent His best people, the avatars, the incarnations, the Son of God, Messenger of God. They have all come to teach us the path to follow. Now it is our turn. Whether we like to go or we like to suffer. That is, he says, Niranjanam, the one who is completely free from all desires and who is eternal and who is having so many different forms. That means we. Bhaktanukampa dhrita vigraham vai. Vigraha means taken the form. Why? Only to guide the devotees, bhakta, not all. The only devotees, the bhaktas. Who are the bhaktas? After traveling the life, those who have realized this life is a folly, we are searching for the happiness. Right from our childhood days, we are searching for happiness. Sometimes we are thinking, if I get a kite, I'll be happy, or a sweet, I'll be happy, a doll, I'll be happy. So we are going on, and ultimately at the age of 80, 90, still we are not happy. Then we stop and think, what is it? Why we are not happy? And then we understand we have to go back to our own source, which is the happiness itself, not these things, because they are all changing. So that guidance, to give that guidance, he has taken the human form, and now he has taken the form as Sri Ramakrishna. Tam Ramakrishna Shirasa Namama. Shira means the head, Namama, I bow down to you. Next. Sarva Dharma Sthapakastam Sarva Dharma Sarupakaha Acharyanam Mahacharyo Ramakrishnayate Namah. Sarva Dharma Sthapakastam. This is one of the very special feature of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna. He was a very perfect householder. At the same time, the unique monk together. He was not having any body consciousness. He was not having any desire, but still he lived like a householder. When you see all others, either they were not married or they left their hearth and home to pursue the spiritual life. Whereas Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna married, lived with his wife, but never ever thought about the physical relation. So that is the uniqueness of Bhagavan Sri. Never he felt And he was the monk. Monk means those who can give up. And that's why they say the Tyagishwara, Ishvara means he's the highest one, and the Tyagi means who has given up. What he has given up? He was a poor man's son. His father was a priest. Not much wealth was there. What he has given up? The pride, the ego. That is so difficult to give up. We can give up the money, we can give up the wealth, we can give up many other things, but we cannot give up the ego. So if one can give the ego completely, so that is the Ishvara among the Tyagis, Tyagishwara. So he was Sarva Dharma Sthapakastam. He was teaching how one should live as a son, as a husband, as a student, as a teacher, as a master. So all these places that in different times, in different ways, every time he was so perfect. Sarva Dharma Sarupakaha. Now here the dharma means all the paths. Different paths are leading to the God. And different times, different people, they came according to the people they were teaching. They gave the path. So this is the path you follow. The majority of the time, if you notice, most of the time, these great teachers, they have taught us only that you should not hurt others, you should not cheat others, like that moralities. But Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, he has given a call to the human society. You have to become God. Morality is all low. Only the children should understand and follow. Don't take out things without telling and all this is all very simple thing. This has nothing to do with the spirituality. The very, very basic thing. But the major portion you will find, major religions, they're teaching only morality. Why the people were such, they had to teach in that way. But when Sri Ramakrishna came, humanity was ready. So he said, the goal of human is God realization, not less than that. It's not the satisfaction, it is not the happiness, it is not this and that. God realization, you have to become God. This is a great call. And that means we can become God. Anyone, there is no sinner. And not that we are having some difficulties and weaknesses that we cannot become God. We can. But what is God? That he also showed. God is nothing but love and unselfishness. The God is nothing but love and unselfishness. That he showed in his life. Acharyanam Mahacharya. He was a great teacher. We salute to that Sri Ramakrishna. Now the third one. Sthapakaya cha dharmasya sarva dharma sarupine avatar varishtaya Ramakrishnaya te namaha. We bow down to that Sri Ramakrishna who came to re-establish religion. Religion was there, but we forgot what is religion. We started quarreling about the paths. My path is the best. So we were killing each other even. In the name of religion, so much of bloodshed. Because we never knew what is religion. We never knew what is God. And whatever we did in the name of religion is nothing but our foolishness and pride. As because I am telling this is the religion, that should be the religion. You have to follow that. Or otherwise I am going to punish you. That is not religion. Sri Ramakrishna came and he established that. Friends, we will continue, but today we have invited the 4 speakers who will be speaking for 15 minutes, 10, 15, 20 minutes, and They will be they're speaking on different parts of Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna's life. That is, one is our Shayantani. She will be speaking on the Holy Company. Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna, again and again, the very first teaching is, how can I realize God? Holy Company. Sadhu Sangha, that's the first step. Second, Mr. Debashish, he will be teaching the second one, where Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna is telling, after the Holy Company, one should go in a solitude and then ponder over the teachings that he has received from that holy person. And third is Puja, and she will be discussing about the discrimination. Now the person who has received the instruction from the holy person went into the solitude and discriminating. Is this, all these things that the person has said is good to me? Can I follow that? That discrimination. And the finally submitting to God, surrendering to God, that is prayers and singing his glories. First, I request Shayantani to come and speak a few words.
सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्तं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. I start by thanking Swami Ishatmananda Ji Maharaj for giving me this opportunity to speak about the importance of holy company, as Thakur, as we lovingly call Sri Ramakrishna, emphasized its glory again and again throughout the Gospel. Almost at the beginning of the Kathamrita, we find Thakur teaching Master Mahashaya about the necessity of spiritual practices suitable for householders. Master Mahashaya asks Thakur, "How, sir, may we fix our minds on God?" Thakur replied, "Repeat God's name and sing his glories." Thakur replied, "Repeat God's name and sing his glories, and keep holy company, and now and then visit God's devotees and holy men." So we hear about the necessity of holy company, but why is it important? Now, the first question that arises in our mind is, how do we identify a holy person? Whose company are we to seek? Let's see what Thakur had to say about who a holy man is. When a person asked Thakur, "How do we recognize a holy person?" Sri Ramakrishna said, "The sadhu's mind is on the lotus feet of Hari." The words and actions of a man who has given his mind to the lotus feet of God are altogether different. A sadhu or holy man practices what he preaches. Let's take another reference from Gospel. This discussion took place in the fall of 1883 at Lily Cottage of Keshav Chandra Sen. A neighbor puts the question to Thakur, "How can one recognize a holy man?" Sri Ramakrishna explained, "He who has surrendered his body, mind, and innermost self to God is surely a holy man." Then further said, "He is a holy man who does not regard woman with the eyes of a worldly person. He never forgets to look upon a woman as his mother and to offer her his worship if he happens to be near her. The holy man constantly thinks of God and does not indulge in any talk except about spiritual things. Furthermore, he serves all beings, knowing that God resides in everybody's heart. These, in general, are the signs of a holy man." In the winter of 1884, While talking about God realization, Thakur said, "Pray to God with a longing heart. He will surely listen to your prayer if it is sincere. Perhaps He will direct you to holy men with whom you can keep company, and that will help you on your spiritual path. Perhaps the holy man will tell you, 'Do this and you will attain God.'" Keep this in mind now. We will go through some glorious examples that Thakur gave in Kathamrita or Gospel to explain the necessity of Sadhu Sangha. The most apt example Thakur gave about the good that comes from keeping the company of the holy is the example of fire in a furnace and the black and cold piece of iron. A black and cold piece of iron becomes red in the furnace of a smithy. Take it out and it becomes black as before. Therefore, the iron must be heated in the furnace every now and then. Our mind remains black and cold. Not a very useful existence, is it? Fire in the furnace is the holy man. Just as the black and cold iron becomes red and hot in the company of fire, our mind too takes the qualities of the sadhu as long as we are in his company. As we go away from the holy man, we again become black and cold iron, engrossed in useless matters. After a religious festival at Rajendra Mitra's house, the master looked at the householder devotees seated around him and said with a smile, "Why shouldn't it be possible for a householder to give his mind to God? But the truth is, he no longer has his mind in him. If he had it, then he could certainly offer it to God." Further, he continued, "So it is necessary for him to constantly to live in the company of holy men. When he gets back his own mind, then he can devote it to spiritual practice. But first, it is necessary to live constantly with the Guru, wait on him, and enjoy the company of spiritual people. Either he should think of God in solitude day and night, or he should live with holy men. The mind left to itself gradually dries up. Take a jar of water, for instance. If the jar is set aside, the water dries up little by little. But that will not happen if the jar is kept immersed in the Ganges. Both these examples of a jar of water and iron makes me think how small things in life or nature can have a much deeper meaning. We may not be capable of understanding and relating to them, but holy company and reading books like Kathamrita sure does keep reminding us of these. To delve into the topic of the hot iron a little more, we gain the benefit of the holy company in their presence and can be molded into the form we should. Move away from them and we no longer can mold ourselves in the same way or as easily. We are black iron then. Another example is that of a physician and his influence on us. Thakur gave this example at Pranpeshwar Mukherjee's house in 1882 when asked how to escape from the labyrinth of the world we are in. Thakur's immediate response was prayer and the company of holy men. You cannot get rid of an ailment without the help of a physician, but it is not enough to be in the company of religious people only for a day. You should constantly seek it, for the disease has become chronic. Again, you can't understand the pulse rightly unless you live with a physician. Moving with him constantly, you learn to distinguish between the pulse of phlegm and the pulse of bile. He must be in the company of those with whom the examination of the pulse has become a regular profession. Similarly, in spiritual life, we must be in the company of someone who knows his job best, the sadhus, obviously. Another time, Thakur gave the example of learning the count of threads. Can anyone and everyone pick out a yarn of a particular count? If you are in that trade, you can distinguish in a moment a 40 count thread from a 41. This again goes back to what we have been talking about. The company of the holy man will help us in our spiritual life as well. We now move on to the many benefits of being in the company of a sadhu. Once a devotee asked, "What is the good of holy company?" Thakur explained, "It begets yearning for God. It begets love of God. Nothing whatsoever is achieved in spiritual life without yearning. By constantly living in the company of holy men, the soul becomes restless for God. This yearning is like the state of mind of a man who has someone ill in the family. His mind is in a state of perpetual restlessness, thinking how the sick person may be cured, or again, one should feel a yearning for God like the yearning of a man who has lost his job and is wandering from one office to another in search of work. If he is rejected at a certain place which has no vacancy, he goes there again the next day and inquires, is there a vacancy today? The last part of this regarding job search may resonate with many of us today. We live in a world where maybe 100 applications lead to one offer after lots of hunts, interviews, no responses, etc. This to me is so similar to searching for God or His holy grace. We search since we start understanding what we are looking for. But Sadhu Sangha gives us the right direction and hastens the process of getting love for God. Sadhu Sangha helps us get closer to this goal. Thakur continued, there is another benefit from holy company. It helps one cultivate discrimination between the real and the unreal. God alone is the real, that is to say, the eternal substance, and the world is unreal, that is to say, transitory. As soon as a man finds his mind wandering away to the unreal, he should apply discrimination. The moment an elephant stretches out its trunk to eat a plantain tree in a neighbor's garden, it gets a blow from the iron goad of the driver. Our mind is the naughty elephant. Like the Mahut, Sadhu Sangha reminds us how to proceed without losing focus. In the spring of 1885, at Balaram Boshu's house, while talking about Purna with Master Mahashaya, Thakur said, no doubt many things are written in books, but the authors themselves do not assimilate what they write. This power of assimilation comes from associating with holy men. People listen to instruction only when it is given by a sadhu who has truly renounced the world. They are not much impressed by the writings or the words of a mere scholar. This is because the sadhu speaks from his experience, and so his words carry conviction. So the teachings become much more effective when a sadhu speaks to us. At Ram's house in summer of 1885, when a devotee asked, Sir, what is the way for worldly people? Thakur said, the company of holy men. Worldly people should listen to spiritual talk. He continued, a drunkard should be given rice water as an antidote. Drinking it slowly, he gradually recovers his normal consciousness. We have read or heard Girish Ghosh, Kalipada Ghosh, Surendranath Mitra, all transformed because they came in the close company of Thakur. Similarly, our bad tendencies also will be wiped off if we remain in holy company. In 1984, while giving a discourse on rules for householders and monks, Thakur takes the example of a stone in a museum. He told the devotees, I visited the museum once. I was shown fossils. A whole animal has become stone. Just see what an effect has been produced by company. Likewise, by constantly living in the company of a holy man, one verily becomes holy. My takeaway from this very small anecdotal reference is that whatever company we keep, that's how we become. An English quote that comes to mind is, be as careful of the books you read as of the company you keep, for your habits and character will be as much influenced by the former as the later. Edwin Paxton Hood. Just in case you're interested, he wrote the biography of William Wordsworth and many other such British scholars. In the fall of 1885 at Shampukur, Thakur said, for the seekers of God, the constant company of holy men is necessary. The disease of worldly people has become chronic, as it were. They should carry out the instruction of holy men. What will they gain by merely listening to their advice? They must not only take the prescribed medicine, but also follow a strict diet. Diet is important. In the spring of 1883, Sri Ramakrishna was discussing the right conduct in a household, and he mentioned the importance of being in holy company. When the time comes for setting a man free, God makes him seek the company of holy men. That is a great promise, especially to the householders. As we are in holy company, I mean all of us present here surely have listened to God's call, otherwise why are we here? Thakur clearly said here, when the time comes for setting a man free, God makes him seek the company of holy men. There is a small counter remark here. When the neighbor asks, can one get this longing for God through frequenting the company of holy men? Thakur said, yes, it is possible, but not for a confirmed scoundrel. A sannyasi's kamandalu, made of bitter gourd, travels with him to the 4 great places of pilgrimage, but still does not lose its bitterness. We must ensure we do not fall into this category of confirmed scoundrels. We must be devotees with good conduct. Maharaj is going to take care of us. Again, we come back to Thakur's words of assurance. On April 8, 1883, while advising Brahmos, Thakur said, there are certain signs of God realization. The man in whom longing for God manifests its glories is not far from attaining him. What are the glories of that longing? They are discrimination, dispassion, compassion for living beings, serving holy men, loving their company, chanting the name and glories of God, telling the truth, and the like. When you see those signs of longing in an aspirant, you can rightly say that for him, the vision of God is not far to seek. In the fall of 1884 during Durga Puja, Vijay Goswami asked Thakur how to deal with wicked people. Thakur said, in the presence of a wicked person, I become alert. If such a man asks me whether I have a piece pipe for smoking, I say yes, I have. Some people have the nature of a snake. They will bite you without warning. You have to discriminate a great deal in order to avoid the bite. Otherwise, your passion will be stirred up to such an extent that you will feel like doing injury in return. The companionship of a holy man is greatly needed now and then. It enables one to discriminate between the real and the unreal. We will now speak a little about what should be our conduct when we are in holy company. Thakur mentioned one very important criterion. One must have faith in the Guru's words. If you only believe his words like a child, you will realize God. What faith a child has. When a child's mother says to him about a certain man, he is your brother, the child believes he really is his brother. The child believes it 125%, though he may be the son of a Brahmin and the man the son of a blacksmith. The mother says to the child, there is a boogaboo in that room, and the child really believes there is a boogaboo in the room. Such is the faith of a child. One must have this childlike faith in the Guru's words. God cannot be realized by a mind that is hypocritical, calculating, or argumentative. One must have faith in sincerity. Hypocrisy will not do. To the sincere, God is very near, but he is far, far away from the hypocrite. This means once we are in holy company, we must have faith in his words and reap the benefit of Sadhu Sangha. In 1885, Thakur advised to Surendra, come here every now and then. Nangta, that's Tutapuri, used to say that a brass pot must be polished every day, otherwise it gets stained. One should constantly live in the company of holy men. The main benefit we get from Sadhu Sangha is the faith and conviction that God exists and God can be realized. Thakur said, proof, God can be seen by practicing spiritual discipline. One sees God through his grace. The rishis directly realized the self. One cannot know the truth about God through science. Science gives us information only about things perceived by the senses. For instance, this material mixed with that material gives us such and such a result, and that material mixed with this material gives such and such a result. For this reason, a man cannot comprehend spiritual things with his ordinary intelligence. To understand that, we must live in the company of holy person, and as Thakur said, we learn to feel the pulse by living with a physician. Let us get more and more opportunities to remain in holy company, so that seeing the sadhu, our faith in God increases, so that listening to him and seeing his life, we get inspired to practice spiritual disciplines more sincerely. May we not remain black iron peace anymore, and may we get at least some qualities of the sadhu by being in his company. Om Tat Sat Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.
the Sadhu Shanga very nicely. He spoke about the Sadhu company, holy company that Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna said. Now I will invite Puja instead of Devashish Babu. We were changing a little because living in solitude was the next, but we will hear that afterwards, as because Puja has to help in other things in Puja. So I am inviting Puja to come and deliver on discrimination.
Asato ma sadgamaya, tamaso ma jyotirgamaya, mrityor ma amritam gamaya. O Lord, lead us from the unreal to the real, from darkness to light, from death to immortality. Om peace, peace, peace. Pranams to Swami Ishatmananda ji and greetings and namaskars to everybody. I'll start with a question. What did the meditation teacher ask his businessman student while teaching meditation? He said, take 3 deep, long breaths and then slowly let go of your cell phone. Cell phone is like our new age attachment that we need to use discrimination for. The topic we're going to talk about is discrimination. I recently told somebody that I need to talk about how to cultivate discrimination. And she looked at me like, why do you want discrimination? Because when you hear of discrimination, you think of religious discrimination, gender discrimination. And I was like, no, that's not the discrimination we want to talk about. We want to talk about a different kind of discrimination. It's called Viveka. Now, unfortunately, because of just language barrier, there is no good translation of the word Viveka in English. It is discrimination. But Viveka more is a dawn of knowledge that lets you decide between the good and the bad, between what is real and the unreal. And you hear the word discrimination a lot in the gospel. Sri Ramakrishna time and again at different instances tells discriminate between the real and the unreal. What that is in Sanskrit, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. And then there's a second part, Jiva Brahmaiva Napara. Brahman is real. Jagat, we and where we live, is unreal, and we are part of that Brahman. It sounds great. The world is unreal because it doesn't make sense, so it's great that it's unreal. But then the question comes is, we ask Thakur is, what do I do with that information that the world is unreal? Because this world seems so real to us. Its joys, its sorrows, its happiness, its sadness, everything seems so real. I live in this world and I experience the world. I experience standing here, I experience you. We are in this center. How can this be unreal? And you know, the gospel is such a beautiful text because if you study the gospel and then you study any other scripture, you feel like I've heard it before. Whether Gita, Upanishads, because Sri Ramakrishna in the Gospel has mentioned those same topics. So it's a complete text, and that's why, you know, it feels rightly the topic Swamiji discusses every week. He calls it Panchama Veda. It's the 5th Veda because it's a text in itself, the Gospel. And in the Gospel, Sri Ramakrishna says, right, discriminate between the real and the unreal, Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya. Obviously, we say, Thakur, how can this world be unreal? I feel it. I feel the sickness, the goodness, I feel happiness, sorrow. And he says, okay. And he gives us baby steps on how to go about it in our everyday life. And that's the beauty of the gospel. He gives example of, let's say, food. He says, think of fruits and vegetables are made of the 5 elements, right? Everything is made of the same 5 elements. So you can see rice, he gives the example of dal, vegetables. It's made of the 5 elements. And at the same time, he says, Rasgulla and Sandesh is also made of the same 5 elements, which is a sweet, a dessert. But yet we crave for something like a Rasgulla. I don't crave for bitter melon, Karela, but I crave for a Rasgulla. And he says that you have to, as you're eating, you think about it and you say, this Rasgulla is made from the same 5 elements, so I should not crave for it. But yet we say, no, Thakur, I'm still craving for it. I still want that Rasgulla. I cannot just look at, I cannot see the sameness between the vegetable and the Rasgulla. And then Thakur so beautifully again says, okay, if you're not able to really give it up or keep it at bay, try a little bit. Eat one Rasgulla and put it in your mouth and then tell yourself. And he says these things and he says, oh mind, this is Rasgulla. It's made from the same 5 elements as the rice and the bitter melon. And when you put it in your mouth, you get the sweet taste. And then when you put it in your stomach, it gets churned with all the other things in the stomach and you forget the taste of Rasgulla later. And that joy, that moment has gone away. Rasgulla was not able to give me permanent joy. For that one brief moment, it gave me that happiness. The same example he uses even for a garment. In the gospel, he says he had the desire to wear some new garment, so he puts it on. He loves it, and then he tells, oh my mind, see such a nice dress you're wearing. Do you like it? Do you feel good about it? But then for a minute, he says, for a minute it's fine, and then he just throws it off and says that I feel no desire in it. Because that garment again is not able to give us lasting joy. So, and this is the kind of vichar. So we hear these words, but then the idea is to, can I go back and where I am right now, can I go back in my everyday life and think about these things? As I'm eating something that I'm not supposed to be eating or indulging in activities that I'm not supposed to be indulging in, can I step back and just think about it? And that's how Sri Ramakrishna does. In his own beautiful way, he tells us step by step on how to go about it. See, because he says Brahma Satya Jagat Mithya, but he does not say because Jagat is Mithya, give up the world and lock yourself up in a room and just do not interact with the world. We are forced to interact with the world exactly where we are, whether it is going to work, whether it is studying, whether it is reading and interacting with each other. Even with that, there's an example Shankaracharya says. Two people are talking to each other, and this is an actual example. He says one person is gossiping about a third person to me, let's say, and you are listening to that gossip, like something bad he's talking about the third person. And he says at the time you're like, oh, okay, wow, I'm so good and wow. And then he says nothing has happened to the third person. That third person is going about their job, about their business. Nothing is happening to that person. The only person incurring sin is me by sitting and listening to this unnecessary conversation because it's not really helping me. So these are examples that in our everyday life that the gospel tells us on step by step, every moment. It's not about leaving and going, but what I am doing right now, can I step back and think, am I doing this? Is it taking me towards a higher goal or is it taking me backwards? And that's the idea, because we hear it in talks in the Panchama Veda class, and then it's mananam, to go back and sort of think about it, remember it. And then to nididhyasana, how can I now put it into action? What is the deeper implication of it? So the other thing is also taking that into, so we talked about Brahma, Satya, Jagat, Mithya, and the steps we can take to kind of understand how this world is unreal, because it's changing. That Roshagulla changed, it went into my stomach, I lost the joy, I eat 10 more Rosagullas, it's going to give me a stomach ache. So it doesn't have the ability to give me joy. So where did my joy come from? Where did I feel joy? It's almost like an equation. Roshagulla plus me equals to happiness. But Roshagulla is gone. It didn't have the ability, it's an object like this desk here. It doesn't have the ability to give me happiness. So where did my happiness come from? And Sri Ramakrishna says, it came from you. There is something inside us that gave us happiness. The Roshagulla must have been a means to it, but the source of joy, as Swamiji was mentioning during the pranam mantra this morning, is within me. And then the question is, can we tap into that joy? It makes you think. Without the external attraction, without that car, without that house, without the youth, can I still tap into a joy within me? And to go about the talk about Jiva Brahmaivana Param, is that if there is joy within me, what is within me? What is this self? And he talks about, there are many examples, like Krishna in the Gita also says, right? And it's in the Ganges, we have boards in Ganges. If you visited the Ganges retreat center, that have Gita sayings. Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dhati pavaka. The axe cannot cut it, the fire cannot burn it. So it's like neti neti. Sri Ramakrishna says, what is it not? The self cannot be burnt, it cannot be cut. So that means it is something eternal within me that has the ability to give me joy. And that maybe I am part of a higher self. In Ganges, I'm again giving a Ganges example, but there is a stained glass window when you go down to the auditorium that has two birds on it. There's a tree, and there is a lower bird eating the fruits, and there is an upper bird not eating and just watching. The difference between the lower bird and the higher bird is the state of mind. Our mind is clouded. We have, decades, generations, and millennials, and lifetimes of, dirt, dust, you may call it, over it. But these things, like what Sayantani mentioned, is holy company, or chanting the name of God, or we'll talk about meditation and solitude. That helps clean the dust of the mind. It's called Chitta Shuddhi. When the mind is clear, then the light of the self inside can shine forth. It's like a dusty mirror. And so the idea is, behind all of this, behind puja, japa, meditation, discrimination, is to do Chitta Shuddhi, so that maybe I don't need that Roshagulla to give me that happiness. Maybe I can get that happiness from within me, that's already there within me. But the gospel really gives us steps in our everyday life on how we can go about it, exactly where we are in our daily interactions, in the food we eat, in our desires. That's the kind of vichar we can do to discriminate between what is good and what's not. I thought of one saying from the Song of the Sannyasin, right? The whole Song of the Sannyasin is beautiful, but I just thought of one. Where seekest thou that freedom, friend? This world nor that can give. In books and temples vain thy search. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. Let go thy hold, Sannyasin bold. Say Om Tat Sat Om. Thank you.
Thank you, Puja, for giving the wonderful example of the Discrimination. Yeah, the moment we say the word discrimination, the people they start looking at us. So why they are talking about discrimination in this country? This is a terrible word. You should not utter that. But it is a completely different aspect, and very nicely she explained it. So now after the puja, can I request Mr. Devashish to come and speak a few words about the living in solitude. When I was in India, he lived in solitude, living over here. So he has a first-hand experience.
I thought that was the issue why Maharaj chose this one for me, living in solitude. We step back a little bit from Puja's introduction on discrimination. My pronouns to Thakur Ma and Swami, to Maharaj, respect to all. The subject is meditation in solitude. While there are many opinions on this subject, I am going to follow the teachings of Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna often said that the goal of human life is God realization. All the other things like education, family, jobs, Olympic medals, etc., are only short-term goals for living. He recommended that one should always be mindful of the final goal while they navigate the short-term successes and failures of life through good and bad times, like holding on to the post in one hand while going around in circles. So, the goal of human life is God realization. Some of us take this statement as a suggestion to give up family life and possessions, to leave home and become a monk. However, that is neither appropriate nor possible for most of us, because we are not suited for such life. Moreover, our scriptures indicate that healthy families are just as important to the society as the other. For householders, Thakur said it's easier to fight from inside the fort, meaning from inside one's home, where life's needs like food, clothing, shelter, etc. are easily available. Now, in order to advance in spirituality from inside the fort, one has to learn to calm the mind down through the process of regular japa and meditation. It helps our minds by cleaning up the debris, unifying the scattered elements, and thus making it capable of concentration. For this process to work, Thakur recommended regular practice, holy company, and occasional practice of meditation for a few days in solitude outside of one's own home, away from distractions. To encourage people to continue with their chosen way of life and profession while keeping the final goal in mind at all times, Sri Ramakrishna gave example of King Janaka of Ramayana. He used to say King Janaka was a Brahmogyani, and yet he was a king with all his kingly duties and also was a caring head of his family. He did not leave his kingdom and go to the jungle. He wielded two swords, one of jnana and the other of worldly duties. However, one cannot certainly become King Janaka. Janaka in early days did a lot of tapasya in seclusion away from locality and thus became the famous king. Most of the rishis of history were family people as well. That said, Thakur brought me to his lap at age of 72. So not much to gain from the way Janaka got himself. We have to remember that living in seclusion is not just for sake of being alone in seclusion. Then many inmates in solitary confinement should also become spiritually advanced. External solitude can only help if we can remain calm internally also. Real silence is the silence of mind. Our struggle is stilling the mind and freeing it from unwelcome thoughts. That doesn't happen until we confront our own mind. Till then, we are unable to fathom the strength of the mind to lead us astray. It is hard to appreciate the strength of water until we try to walk against the flow of a river. Those who practice meditation know that more they instruct their mind to zero in on Ishta, more the mind jumps around to many other things except that. Hence, it is almost impossible to fight the mind initially from within the family setting, which is naturally full of many scattered challenges. This is why Sri Ramakrishna suggested meditation in seclusion, where the chances of scattering is lower. A serious seeker should go away to a quiet place from time to time. However, even in a solitary environment, natural beauty or external sounds can easily carry the mind away. It is good if one can pray and cry for God in solitude even for 3 days. Here we can become familiar with the nature of our mind and can monitor how the mind is working and the many ways it's distracting and confusing us. Scattering force is somewhat subdued in solitude, and we have easier access to our goal, our Ishta. Since social and family life is a constant disruption to mental tranquility, we should avail any opportunity for time in seclusion and train our minds to rest on the divine. With this training, we gradually develop a taste and attraction and a sense of joy that is different from our normal experience. However, one should be mindful about duration of solitary living as well. It depends on the makeup of one's mind. People have been known to lose balance in prolonged living in seclusion. These days, many people live by themselves, so quiet living can be practiced from inside the home as long as we can make proper arrangements. One can stock the necessities, turn off the TV and other gadgets, and make preparations in order to minimize interruptions for a few days. The idea is to practice concentration and meditation in a quiet place and develop a disciplined mind. Commonly, meditation is done using imagination by setting our minds on some image of divinity familiar to us. However, just visualizing a piece of stone or a photograph is not enough. We need to think of the qualities that make the image come to life in our minds. For example, when a mother is thinking of her child, she is thinking of the physical appearance along with the movements, sounds of laughter, the walk, the talks, and the whole thing that makes the child come to life in her mind. This is the normal process of meditation. The same way, if we are thinking of Sri Ramakrishna, just thinking of a picture in the front of us is not enough. We need to think of the person related to the picture with the image we know about, with the things we know about him that makes him come alive in our minds. Like the Holy Mother said, he will smile and even talk to us. We can imagine him to be all powerful, controller of all things, full of goodness, love, kindness, wholesome and pure. It's easier to meditate on Sri Ramakrishna due to the abundance of perfection in his character. His life was a collection of all good qualities known to man. He was born at a remote village, poor and uneducated, yet his manners were refined, gentle, and courteous with childlike simplicity. We know many stories of his truthfulness and renunciation. His ekagrata, or single-minded concentration, was so sharp and pointed that he attained Nirvikalpa Samadhi in just 3 days that took his Guru Totapuri ji 40 years of sadhana. One of my favorite stories of his concentration is as follows. Once Swami Shivananda said that it was particularly interesting to see Sri Ramakrishna going to the Kali temple from his room after taking his bath. He moved swiftly and steadfastly toward the temple. Nothing distracted him. Only on his way back would he stop, talk to other people, and bow at other temples. I pictured it to a bull running to the target. In his earlier days of sadhana, the temple management was annoyed with Sri Ramakrishna, who was Gadadhar at the time, due to his unorthodox way of worship. And one day they forbade him from entering the temple. They posted one of the guards at the door. He must have been a trained wrestler like the other guards in Rani's employment. At the usual time, Gadadhar walked from his room to the Kali temple to worship the mother. The guard stretched his hands and blocked the door. However, Sri Ramakrishna did not seem to have noticed the detail. He just brushed the man aside, just as if he was clearing his way to the mother, and simply went in. However, it must have been a pretty good blow because the guard went tumbling to the floor. This is like a little boy who is running for his mother and will not stop anything until he gets on her lap. The avatar comes to set examples for us. The above is one of the examples of perfection in Sri Ramakrishna. Thank you. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanam.
Thank you, Devashish Babu. But Swami Vivekananda said that you should develop a quality in such a way that when you are in the solitude of the Himalaya, you should feel tremendous activity. And when you are in the hustle and bustle of the New York City, you should feel quietness of the Himalaya. But that means you are able to control your mind. People are shouting, they are talking, but you know how to lock your mind. So that is called yoga. The yoga, the union with God, it goes in so intense way, you never care about the surroundings. Now I invite the Sumitre to give a talk on the prayers and singing His glories. Please go.
ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. Thank you, Swami Ishatmananda ji, for giving me the opportunity to speak on the most auspicious occasion of Thakur's birthday celebration. Today I will talk about Thakur's teaching on prayer and chanting of God's name. You know, I was listening to Swami Chaitanananda ji's speech at the Balloon Mart this year on Thakur's program. And he was telling that a monk in Balur he was celebrating his reading of Kathamrita for 50 times. So he was not bored, and he discovered new meanings every time he read. So today I will present a few teachings of Sri Ramakrishna from the Gospel, which Swami Nikhilanandaji published in Thakur's birthday in February 1942 in New York, which I'm sure that all of you have read many times, and hopefully will find this presentation as rejuvenating. There is hardly anybody who hasn't prayed sometime or other in his or her life. So Prarthana or prayer is speaking to God, right? So it represents the first attempt of the ordinary human soul to approach God. Just as our meeting to any other fellow man takes a form of a dialogue, so also the first meeting of the God takes the form of an inner dialogue. It is the first effort of the soul to express his spiritual aspiration. For that, the only way the infant soul can orientate itself to the supreme reality. The main purpose of spiritual prayer is to seek divine assistance, right, in attaining the moral purity and the spiritual progress. So a true devotee of God prays not for material things, which are transitory after all, but for spiritual enlightenment. Prayer represents the first stage of the aspirant's struggle for the higher consciousness. Though the common people still prayed, but prayer as a spiritual discipline was seldom stressed in the great teacher. It may be said that in modern times, Sri Ramakrishna has revived it. In the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, one finds Master recommending prayer in several occasions. Once a devotee asked him, "Then what is the way, sir?" Sri Ramakrishna answered, "Prayer and company of holy men." After explaining the benefits of a holy company, the Master continued, "There is another way, earnestly praying to God. God is our very own. We should say to him, 'O God, what is thy nature? Reveal thyself to me. Thou must reveal thyself to me, for why else hast thou created me?'" Another day, M., the author of the book, told him, "God gives some people full spiritual consciousness and other he keeps in ignorance." Immediately the Master corrected him. "No, that's not the way. That's not so. One should pray to God with longing heart. God certainly listens to the prayer if it is sincere." There is no doubt about it. What Sri Ramakrishna meant was through the sincere prayer, everyone could overcome his inherent limitation and gain spiritual experience by God's grace. The main purpose of prayer is to seek divine power. As says Sri Ramakrishna, through prayer, all individual soul can be united with the Supreme Soul. Like every house has a connection for gas, and gas can be obtained from a main storage in the gas company, right? You apply for the company, and they will come and arrange for the gas, and your house will be lighted. There is an inner resistance in all of us, the free flow of divine power. The resistance is offered by ego. So Sri Ramakrishna used to say, rainwater doesn't collect on a mound. Prayer reduces the inner resistance and opens the heart to grace. In fact, it is our sheer helplessness that many of us pray to God. A person who knows everything, who is sure of everything, need not pray. Sri Ramakrishna used to say, as long as there is storekeeper looking after a storeroom, the master of the house doesn't go there. Thakur said, pray to him any way you like. He is always sure to hear you. He can even hear a footfall of an ant. Thakur said, God is extremely attentive. My boys, he said, heard every time you have prayed to him. He surely reveal himself to you someday or other. at least at the time of death. Thakur said, one attains God through japa, by repeating God's name secretly and in solitude. One receives divine bliss. Then the vision comes. All sins of the body fly away if one chants the name of God and sings His glories. The birds of sin dwell in the tree of body. Singing the name of God is like clapping your hand. As at a clap of a hand the birds of the tree fly away, so do our sins disappear at the chanting of God's name and glories. Just like the water of a reservoir dug in a meadow is evaporated by the heat of a sun, likewise the water of a reservoir of sin is dried up by singing of God's name and glories. May your body and mind become pure by repeating the name of God. The mind keeps well when engaged in work, and yet japa, prayer, is especially needed. You must sit down once in the morning and once in the evening. That acts as a rudder on a boat. As wind removes the cloud, so the name of God destroys the clouds of worldliness. The effect of karma can be counteracted to a great extent by the japa and austerity. Sri Ramakrishna taught that the yoga of devotion is the best suited for this age. In the Kali Yuga, he said, the best way is bhakti yoga, the path of devotion, singing the praises of the Lord and the prayer. The path of devotion along with the religion for this age. The need to give love to universal. One can realize God by following the path of love and devotion. God is extremely compassionate. If one takes the step towards God, God comes 1,000 steps towards you. Lord, give me the longing for you, give me devotion. Thakur said that the Lord answered your sincere prayer. Thakur said, bhakti, a love of God, is the essence of all spiritual discipline. Through love, one acquires renunciation and discrimination naturally. Thakur said, if a man repeats the name of God, his body, mind, and everything becomes pure. Then he said, to my divine mother, I prayed only for pure love. I offered flower at his lotus feet and prayed to her. Ma, এই লও তোমার পাপ, এই লও তোমার পুণ্য, আমি কিছুই চাই না, আমায় শুদ্ধা ভক্তি দাও। এই লও তোমার ভালো, এই লও তোমার মন্দ, আমি ভালো মন্দ কিছুই চাই না, আমায় শুদ্ধা ভক্তি দাও। এই লও তোমার ধর্ম, এই লও তোমার অধর্ম, আমি ধর্মাধর্ম কিছুই চাই না, আমায় শুদ্ধা ভক্তি দাও। এই লও তোমার জ্ঞান, এই লও তোমার অজ্ঞান, আমি জ্ঞান অজ্ঞান কিছুই চাই না, আমায় শুদ্ধা ভক্তি দাও। এই লও তোমার সূচি, এই লও তোমার অসুচি, আমায় শুদ্ধা ভক্তি দাও। In English, Mother, here is thy virtue, here is thy vice. Take them both and grant me only pure love for thee. Here is thy knowledge, here is thy ignorance, take them both and grant me only pure love for thee. Here is thy purity, here is thy impurity. Take them both, Mother, and grant me only pure love for thee. Take thy dharma and take thy adharma. Take them both, Mother, and grant me only pure love for thee. At closing, I say, let's pray to Sri Ramakrishna and chant his glories so that we all can reach his lotus feet. Jai Sri Ramakrishna.
So, wonderful, Shumit. So let us chant from this paper you must be having Sri Ramakrishna Stotra Darshakam. In the meantime, we'll be preparing for the Arati. The page 1, this is Stotra Darshakam. That means the 10 stanzas. ब्रह्म रूप आदि मध्य शेष सर्वभाषकम् भावषट्कहीन रूप नित्य सत्य अद्वयम् वाङ्मनोति गोचरञ्च नेति नेति भावितम् वाङ्मनोति गोचरञ्च नेति नेति भावितम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् आदितेऽभिहरम् सुरारिदैत्यनाशकम् साधुशिष्टकामदम् महिषुभार आरकम् स्वात्मरूपतत्त्वकम् युगे युगे च दर्शितम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् त्वं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् सर्वभूतसर्गकर्म सूत्रबन्धकारणम् ज्ञानकर्म पापपुण्य तारतम्य साधनम् बुद्धिवास साक्षी रूप सर्वकर्म भासनम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् तुल्यलोष्ट्रकाञ्चनञ्च हेयनेऽधिगतम् स्त्रीषु नित्यमातृभाव शक्तिभाव भावुकम् ज्ञान भक्ति भुक्ति मुक्ति शुद्ध बुद्धिदायकम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् तं नमामि देवदेव रामकृष्ण ईश्वरम् सर्वधर्मगम्यमूल सत्यतत्यदेशकम् सिद्ध सर्वसम्प्रदाय साम्प्रदाय वर्जितम्. That one should have his own path. That's a sampradaya. Now I want to develop my own path to realize God. But there should not be conflict between the two. Sampradaya varjitam. And beautifully it has used, the sampradaya means I have my own idea to realize God. I will eat this type of food, I will wear this type of dress, I will do this type of practices. That is my own way. And you may be following something else, but there is no conflict. So that's why he is telling, Sarva Dharma Gamma Mula Satya Tattva Deshakam Siddha Sarva Sampradaya Sampradaya Darshitam Sarva Shastra Marmadarshi Sarva Vinniraksharam Tam Namami Deva Deva Ramakrishna Ishwaram Tvam Namami Deva Deva Ramakrishna Ishwaram Charudarsha Kalika Sugita Charu Gayakam Kirtaneshu Mattavacha Nitya Bhava Vyuvalam Supadesha Dayakam Hi Shokatapabarakam Tam Namami Deva Deva Ramakrishna Ishwaram Tam Namami Deva Deva Ramakrishna Ishwaram Pada Padma Tattva Bodha Shanti Saukhya Dayakam Sapta Chitta Bhakta Sunu Nitya Vitta Vardhakam Dambhidarpadaranantu Nirbhaya Jagadgurum Tam namami deva deva Ramakrishna Isharam Tam namami deva deva Ramakrishna Isharam Pancha Varsha Bala Bhava Yukta Hamsharupinam Sarvalokaranjanam Bhavagni Sangha Bhanjanam. After the God realization, he becomes like a child. Panchavarsha Balabhava. He's like a 5 years old boy. So he just play, he just do whatever way he likes. So this is the beautiful way, very simple way, and at the same time, he's a Hamsharupinam. He's completely unattached, detached with everything. Like as the swan is in the swan is swimming on the water, but the water cannot touch it. Like that, he lives in this world without being contaminated by the bad things of the world. So Panchavarsha Balava, let us do it again. Panchavarsha Balabhava Yuktaham Sharupinam Sarvalokaranjanam Bhavagni Sangha Bhanjanam Shanti Sukha Sadma Jiva Janma Viti Nashanam. What happens after God realization? That there is no fear of death. So that we get no fear about death because there is no birth. There is no death too. Shanti Sokya Sadma Jiva Janma Bhiti Nashanam Tam Namami Deva Deva Ramakrishna Isharam Tam namami deva deva Ramakrishna Isharam Dharmahanaharakam Twadharma karma bharakam Lokadharmacharanancha Sarvadharma kovidam Tagi gehi sebhya nitya Pavanangri pankajam. This is the beauty that the Tyagi and Gehi. Gehi means the householder, Tyagi means the monks. Both can worship Sri Ramakrishna. Why? Because there are so many things common. They both are worshipping Sri Ramakrishna. Tagi gehi sebhya nitya pavanangri pankajam tam namami deva deva Ramakrishna Ishwaram Tam namami deva deva Ramakrishna Ishwaram. Thank you. You have learned Sanskrit song. I was little distracted because of the fire. They were going on taking like this. And few days back, we had an experience of fire. So that's why I was thinking there should not be anything wrong. So, well, friends, let us since you have sang the Sanskrit song, a mixture of Sanskrit and Bengali will be all right for you. And it's a very common song. Anyone can sing as long as they are doing this arati. Let us sing this Ramakrishna Sharanam. Do you know it? Many of you. Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Krishna Sharanam, Sharani, Jai Jai Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharani, Prabhu Kripa hi Kevalam, Kripa hi Kevalam, Ahi Sharani, Prabhu Kripa hi Kevalam, Kripa hi Kevalam, Pahi Kevalam, Sharani, Jai Jai Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharani, Sharanagatam, 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 Sharani, Prabhu Sharanagatam, 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 Sharani, Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharani. Namah Sri Gurave, Namah Sri Gurave, Namah Sri Gurave, Namo Namo, Namah Sri Gurave, Namah Sri Gurave, Namah Sri Gurave, Namo Namo. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharani. Ramakrishna, Ramakrishna, Jaya Jaya Ramakrishna, 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 Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharane. Prabhu Kripa hi Kevalam, Kripa hi Kevalam, Kripa hi Kevalam, Sharane. Prabhu Kripa hi Kevalam, Kripa hi Kevalam, Kripa hi Kevalam, Sharane. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharane. Sharanagatam, 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 Sharane. Prabhu Sharanagatam, 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 Sharane. Jai Jai Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Ramakrishna Sharanam, Sharane. Jai Bhagavan Sri Ramakrishna Dev ki, Jai Mahamai ki, Jai Shami Ji Maharaj Ji ki, Jai Ganga Mai ki. Now you are having the flower in your hand. So I will chant the mantra, please. Mentally offer that, then our volunteers will collect it, right? Our volunteers will go and collect the flower from you. Then you can come and offer your pranam over here. Om Oim Isha Sachandana Pushpanjali Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Om Oim Isha Shachandana Pushpanjali Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Om Oim Isha Shachandana Pushpanjali Sri Ramakrishnaya Namaha. Sangaya Swabarnaya Sashaktikaya Saparshadaya Sarvadeva Devi Swarupaya Ramakrishnaya Bhoshat. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om.